David Moyes tried, Louis van Gaal tried, Jose Mourinho tried, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tried, and Erik ten Hag tried. One by one, managers with glittering CVs elsewhere walked through the doors of Old Trafford, and one by one, they walked out having failed to bring Manchester United back to the top of English or European football. And now, it's the lowest ebb since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. The big question being asked by everyone was simple. How long could Rúben Amorim survive? Turns out, not very long at all. Because by late November, Sir Jim Ratcliffe had already lost his patience. He discussed stuff with his inner circle and decided to lean heavily on the philosophy of Sir Dave Brailsford, and that philosophy pointed in one direction. Find a head coach that absolutely loves data. Hello! So in this save, we're not following Moneyball principles. We're not searching for undervalued gems. We're looking for the best of the best that data can offer. If that means a 6'7" Austrian battering ram, then so be it. If that means a £150 million world superstar, so be it. We follow the numbers, we follow the evidence, and we follow the stats. Welcome to the statistical rebuild of Manchester United. So right now, in this gaming universe on Football Manager, Man United sit 13th in the league. They have a media prediction of 7th. It's a massive underperformance, especially for a club that has the 6th largest wage bill in the league. In fact, it's the single biggest underperformance against their media prediction in the entire division in this save. So we're going to try and fix them using data. To do that, we've built a game well packed with information. Obviously, England is running with the Premier League and the Championship loaded. On top of that, we're pulling in the top divisions from Italy, France, Spain, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Portugal, Scotland, Turkey, Argentina and Brazil. And for fairness, the first transfer window is disabled. Season 1 is simple. No new signings, no shortcuts, football, data collection, and try and build a tactical identity. We'll shape our system, refine our approach, and analyse everything at the end of the season to transform the squad. And with that, here are the targets for the save. Season 1, stabilise the club. Season 2, qualify for the Champions League. Season 3, try and be in a title race. Season 4, win the Premier League. And Season 5, win the Champions League. Now, if you are interested in a more Moneyball type of save, trying to find value in the data that we use, I've left a link in the description to my Everton playthrough save. After about 2 or 3 episodes, we dive right into a Moneyball type approach, and it was bloody good fun. There'll be plenty more series like that coming on the channel. But before we dive into the rebuild, it's time to meet the manager, me. And as any storyteller will tell you, the tale is only as good as the world you build around it. So here's our story. Long before football, tactics and boardroom dramas, we were part of the data analyst team behind Team Ineos Cycling. We're living in spreadsheets, chasing marginal gains and helping fuel one of the most dominant eras the sport had ever seen. That is where we met Sir Dave Brailsford. He saw something in the reports that we had produced, the patterns, the projections, the obsession with squeezing out every last ounce of performance. He encouraged us to lean deeper into his philosophy of marginal gains, and soon enough, we climbed the rankings at Team Ineos and other doors began to open. We ditched the bike and followed our real passion, football. Sir Dave helped us land our first role as a data analyst with Cadiz in Spain. From there, we bounced around the European footballing world: Almeria, Como, PSV, Charlton, FC Paris, Aston Villa, and finally landing on our feet at Real Madrid. Along the way, we grinded through our coaching badges and earned our Continental C licence, but always remained in the data departments of those clubs. However, we picked up fragments of identities from every club we touched. From the smaller sides, we learnt motivation, the simple sayings that stick with you. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Travelling from club to club across the continent, we proved we were driven, always preaching the religion of marginal gains. Under Unai Emery at Aston Villa, we discovered the fine art of tactical tinkering, constant refinement and evolution. And at Real Madrid, we understood the heart of football itself. Attacking, expressive, entertaining. The game as it's meant to be played. Somehow, we'd crammed all that into our life by the age of 39. So yes, it's a shock that Man United have chosen a data analyst as their new head coach, but we do come with some pedigree. And after all, it's not just my neck on the line, it's Sir Dave Brailsford's as well. Given our lack of actual managerial experience, we are going to lean heavily on our staff at the club. Everything that doesn't involve transfers or matchday decisions is delegated to the appropriate people. And as much as Season 1 is all about stabilisation, we still had a full campaign of football to play. And if we're going to build a squad capable of qualifying for the Champions League in Season 2, we need to understand what that looks like now. So I went digging. I dived into FBRef and pulled the last 5 Premier League seasons data. We focused on one very specific type of team, the sides that finished exactly in the final Champions League qualification spot. Newcastle, Aston Villa, Newcastle again, Tottenham and Chelsea. And if we could understand what they had in common, we could understand where this Man United team were falling short and where we needed to focus our tactical identity. So what does a Champions League qualification level season actually look like? Well, on average, you need 20 wins, a maximum of 9 draws, a maximum of 9 losses, 68 goals scored, 43 conceded, and around 69 points. But it's not enough just to know the headline numbers, we actually need to know how they achieved it, so we dug a little deeper. So breaking it down a little bit further, across the 5 seasons those teams used 27 players across the campaign. There was proper rotation and a trust in the squad. The squads had an average age of 27, so they were hitting the sweet spot between youthful energy and exuberance and experienced composure, and weren't afraid to use players all around that, giving them an average of 27. They averaged 54% possession, enough to control and dictate matches, not simply react to what was happening. So that tells us everything we need to start, really. We need the ball, we need calm, controlled phases of play, and we were building from the back, playing short from goal kicks into our centre-backs to support that style. When it came to ball progression, the teams averaged about 8.7 progressive dribbles per match, with 17.6 progressive passes per match. It tells us we can't just pass for the sake of passing. We need to move the ball forward and play through the press, keeping the tempo high. Breaking down the passing data was quite revealing. 46% short passes, 41% medium passes, and only 13% long passes. We'll use a short passing style that's not overly restrictive, but tight enough to avoid those brainless long balls. Attacking wise, teams average 0.7 goals per 90, 35% shot accuracy, and 4.8 shots on target per match. Shot locations on average were taken from around 16.3 yards, therefore inside the penalty area. This tells us what we need to do to structure our attack. We'll work the ball into the box, we'll avoid hopeless long shots, and we focus on creating high quality chances. Individual metrics do matter here, so obviously that'll be part of the end of season review with all the players. Defensively, these teams won 46% of the tackles they attempted, mostly in the middle and defensive thirds of the pitch, but surprisingly 13% of successful tackles came in the final third, or the opposition's defensive third. This is so much higher than teams that are in the bottom half of the table. What does that tell us though? It tells us that teams didn't just defend deep, they defended high, they pressed aggressively in the attacking third and forced mistakes. So for us, a high defensive line and a high press, we're going to prevent short goalkeeper distribution, and that'll allow us to trigger the press early and fairly often. Finally, aerially, the teams averaged 52% headers won. Now, this is heavily dependent on personnel. There's nothing in-game I can suggest to say win more headers, so that'll be part of the end of season review with the players as well. The final part of the data jigsaw is actually comparing and understanding where the team are currently falling short. It's not looking great. Underperforming in terms of goals scored per 90, non-penalty expected goals per 90, shots per 90, possession, and conceding too many goals against per 90. I think we've got our work cut out. Knowing all this allowed us to confirm our in and out of possession tactical philosophies to hopefully gain us Champions League qualification at the end of Season 2. Next, we needed to set up a tactic that we could use within our squad. To do that, we need to assess the squad itself. The squad has an interesting balance to it. 5 players who would prefer to play at centre-back, 2 left-sided defenders, 2 right-sided defenders, 5 players that play in central midfield, 3 wingers and 2 strikers. Focusing on the defenders, we have a good range of attributes and skill sets. We have 2 elite jumpers in De Ligt and Maguire. They're also elite in strength, positioning and heading. Pace-wise, we have Lenny Yoro in the centre and Patrick Dorgu on the left that both have elite-level acceleration. All the defenders had very solid attributes across first touch, technique and passing. Dorgu's passing at 11 is a slight concern for a team looking to keep the ball and play from the back. In terms of tackling, De Ligt and Martinez showed elite level ability, but again, nearly all our defenders showed a good ability to win tackles. Predictably, our wide defenders were a little worse in this area, but not dreadful. Into the midfield, and we have some very varied players. Bruno Fernandes is elite in passing, vision, crossing, flair, first touch and technique. He will definitely be a starter for us in our team. Casemiro brings elite strength, heading and tackling and looks like a solid option in a more defensive role. Manuel Ugarte, who finds himself on the transfer list, is an elite in positioning and tackling. Kobe Mainu looks like a very good all-rounder and has age on his side. He has elite level technique. Mason Mount looks like he could fill any role required, not elite at anything, but capable at everything, except heading. The wide midfielders is possibly our best group of players. Cunha, Mbeumo and Ahmad all bring great attributes where needed. Cunha and Ahmad are elite in flair, whilst Ahmad also is elite in acceleration, first touch and technique. Cunha shares the elite level technique with Ahmad. Brian Mbeumo is elite in one attribute, first touch, but is on the cusp of eliteness in a number of attributes, flair, acceleration, pace and technique. Whatever system we decide to use, these three will likely be key to picking up points. And then we move on to the strikers with two main options who are very different. Benjamin Sesko brings elite pace and jumping reach. He is close to elite levels in heading, but is lacking a little bit in his vision. His finishing is good and he should be able to score goals. Joshua Zirkzee looks more like a creative attacking midfielder. Passing, vision, flair and technique are all elite. If we can get him on the ball and utilise those on the ball abilities such as passing, flair and technique, he could be a great weapon to our up front arsenal. If possible, I'd like to use both strikers in a tactical system that can complement each other. A quick look at the goalkeepers and it's a real mixed bag. Bayendir brings elite levels of aerial reach and is on the cusp of elite handling, kicking and reflexes. Le Mans is the youngest goalkeeper in this selection but has no elite attributes. He could be a good all-rounder. Tom Heaton, our in-house veteran, has elite level of communication but looks very much like our third choice. And so with all that in mind, we went for a very basic 4-2-2-2 formation in possession and a 4-2-2-1-1 out of possession. This should allow us to get the best out of our key players, Bruno and the wingers, and it should allow us to build up from the back and we'll give two options in attack. All that is left to do is play the game. This is how it's going to work in this save. I'm going to go on holiday in between games, we're going to come back, pick the matchday squad and instant result. We'll come back at the end of the season to review how it's gone and look through the data. One quick point though is that I am going to try and actively loan out youngsters in this save. We're going to look to see if they can develop in senior football where we can track their data and then maybe progress them into the starting lineup as the years go on. We'll keep an eye on it. Benjamin Sesko, who managed just a single goal in 13 appearances under Rúben Amorim, transformed into a full-blown goal machine once we took charge. By the end of the season, he'd racked up 21 goals in all competitions. And it wasn't only Sesko who benefited from the shift in approach. When you compare Amorim's first 13 league games with our 25-game spell, the difference in attacking output was striking. With the exception of Mbeumo, whose numbers are a little bit distorted by his absence at AFCON, every member of our front four improved. Benjamin Sesko's Premier League goal rate skyrocketed from 0.08 goals per game to 0.6. Mbeumo's output appeared to drop, but that is misleading. He missed 6 matches at AFCON, yet for consistency we divided by our full 25-game run rather than his actual appearances. But on that basis, his rate did move from 0.54 down to 0.32. Mateus Cunha contributions surged as well, jumping from 0.08 goals per game to 0.36, and even Zirkzee, who we deployed in the more creative supporting role, saw an increase, climbing to 0.08 goals per game after failing to score at all under Rúben Amorim. But the analysis wasn't just about our strikers, it was about our performances as a whole, and how our numbers stacked up against the 5-year averages required to secure Champions League qualification. So we're going back to the spreadsheets. When we compare our season to those benchmarks, it's clear we're still not quite hitting the levels needed. We finished with 16 wins, 14 losses and 8 draws. Across the board, that leaves us short of the typical requirements, which is around 20 wins, no more than 9 draws and no more than 9 defeats. Our goal scoring was actually close, we were just 1 goal shy of the average target, but the real issue jumps off the page when you look at goals conceded. We shipped 14 more than the average historical benchmark. And that defensive gap translates directly into points. So we ended the season 13 points short, effectively 4 wins away from what is needed on average. Digging a bit deeper and using the actual data that FM would allow me to extract, because it is limited this season, squad usage was bang on the benchmark. AFCON absences resulted in the call-up for a number of youngster players such as Chido Obi, James Scanlon, Jaden Camerson, Sekou Kone, Diego Leon and Sam Mather, meaning we ended up using 27 players. Age-wise, we're also in the right zone. The league average sits at 27 and our squad came in at 26. Possession tells a similar story. We averaged 52% across the whole season, which is only slightly below the 53.8% typical of Champions League level teams. There's nothing alarming there. I'm certainly not going to change our tactics dependent on that. Where things do get interesting is aggression. We were miles off the historical average. We collected only 25 yellow cards and not a single red, compared to the 5-year average of 68.6 yellow cards a season and 1.6 red cards a season. It suggests we might actually be too passive. We might be able to increase our defensive aggressive next season. It could be worth exploring. We've already seen that our expected goals both for and against were below the required standard, and that is a clear area for improvement. And then there's ball progression. Our dribbling numbers were well short of the benchmark, finishing 221 progressive dribbles below the average across the whole season. Unfortunately, FM doesn't offer a reliable team level stat for progressive passes, and it's tracked individually for each player. So we can't compare ourselves there, but the dribbling suggests we weren't progressing the ball as effectively as we needed to as a team. The final set of spreadsheet data compares our 25 league games in charge to Rúben Amorim's 13 game spell, essentially asking one question: did we actually improve the team? In short, yes we did, absolutely. The cultured left foot v Rúben Amorim row is almost entirely green, showing improvement across virtually every single metric. The only area that dipped was pass completion, and even that, it was a marginal drop of 1%. Overall, the data suggests we clearly pushed the team in the right direction, even if, as the earlier benchmarks did show, we still fell short on the levels needed to hit the Champions League averages. So the big question is, what did it actually mean for our final league position? Well, we dragged the team up from 13th when Amorim left to a very respectable 8th position. The final table did reveal something important. Chelsea, who finished 5th and claimed what would be the final Champions League qualification spot thanks to coefficients, actually outperformed the 5-year averages across the board. They won more games, drew fewer, conceded less, and amassed more points than the historical benchmark. In other words, this challenge might be tougher than we first thought. The bar for Champions League qualification of FM's Premier League is rising, and the overall quality of the league seems to be trending upwards. But if we looked at the XG, the story becomes a bit clearer. We massively overperformed. Based purely on our expected numbers across the season, we should have finished 11th. I'm not disappointed, overperformance still earns us points, but it is a warning sign. If we can't sustain our level of efficiency and overperformance, the stats sort of suggest we're likely to regress towards the mean in the future. But it wasn't just us defying the numbers. Chelsea, who had grabbed that final Champions League spot, finished with around 20 more points than their XG would predict. And the XG data actually reinforces this idea that the true points tally needed for Champions League qualification is still in line with that 5-year average that we worked out. But as well as the overall team metrics, we do need to look at the squad. What we'll do is focus on those players that have played 10 games or more, so 900 minutes, starting with the goalkeepers. Seny Lamens and Alti Bayendir have been fighting over the number 1 place in the team. Seny Lamens came out on top. However, neither have felt like they should be the starter, and it's a position I think we can definitely upgrade over the summer. Now, I'm not sure on the data for goalkeepers. It can be trusted in FM, really. It's all a bit over the place, but Seny Lamens conceded 1 more goal than he should have done according to the data. Looking through the back end, he had a save ratio of 70%. This means that he saved 70% of the shots taken at him. He conceded throughout the season over a goal a game. These are the 2 stats we need to improve on next season. Bayendir played a lot less games and therefore had a smaller data set, but he conceded less goals per game and had a better expected goals prevented than Lamens. To top it off, his save ratio is also better at 77%. So I think we can still improve on these numbers with the new goalkeeper, but heading into next season, if these 2 are the options we have, Bayendir will get the nod and start as number 1. On to the right backs, Dalot and Mazraoui. Diego Dalot was, average rating wise, our second best player this season. The underlying data seems to back this up. 79% of his tackles were won, he completed 24% of his crosses and completed 92% of his passes. He'd made 28 starts as our main right back across the season. Mazraoui saw a lot less football as a result of Dalot's form. 8 starts and 10 sub-appearances resulted in 70% tackle win rate, 31% cross completion and a 90% pass completion. Right back will not be a priority for investment this summer unless something drastic happens. On to the left backs, Luke Shaw and Patrick Dorgu. Luke Shaw had a good season where he surprisingly stayed relatively injury free. Whilst getting a good average rating in the leagues, his underlying numbers were not as good as Dalot on the right. 74% tackles won, 17% cross completion and 90% pass completion. He started the same number of games as Dalot, 28. Patrick Dorgu started 15 games in the league and showed some very good numbers as a backup to Luke Shaw. 82% tackles won, 29% cross completion and 91% pass completion. If we get a good offer for Luke Shaw this summer, I'd be happy just to let Dorgu step in and be a starting left back. Next up, the right-sided centre-backs, Harry Maguire and Lenny Yoro. Old Slabam himself had a very good season. He was actually given a 1-year contract extension before we replaced Rúben Amorim. He made 26 starts in the league this season and performed incredibly well. 86% of his tackles were won, 95% passes were completed, and he won 66% of his headers. It's a very good season from the England international. Lenny Yoro was his backup, yet still made 20 starts in the league campaign, putting in some phenomenal numbers. He won 100% of his tackles, completed 95% of his passes, and had a 69% aerial duel success rate. Nice. Left-sided centre-backs saw Matthias de Ligt and Lisandro Martinez compete with one another, with a clear winner. De Ligt made 29 starts, winning 74% of his tackles and completing 96% of his passes. He was outstanding in the air, winning 75% of his headers. He will likely partner Lenny Yoro at centre-back next season in what should be a fantastic partnership. Lisandro Martinez, on the other hand, only made 5 starts in the Premier League. He came off the bench 23 times. Whilst he completed 95% of his passes and won 65% of his headers, his tackle win ratio of 56% was very disappointing for an experienced centre-back. We will likely move him on this summer and therefore allow Aidan Heaven to take up Martinez's role of the defender that sits on the bench. Into midfield, and we start with the more defensive of the two roles, the DM. With this saw Ugarte and Casemiro competing for a place, as the more defensive midfield role will focus on defensive stats. Manu Ugarte, who found himself transfer listed when we arrived, became a staple part of the midfield, making 22 starts in the league. He completed 80% of his tackles and won 43% of his headers. He completed 94% of his passes as well. He won possession more times than he lost it, which is good to see. Casemiro is unfortunate because he's being judged partly on his £300,000 a week wage. He started 13 games in the league as he played clear second fiddle to Ugarte. His numbers when he played were incredible though, 93% pass completion, 93% tackles won and 63% of his headers won. He showed slightly better numbers than Ugarte in terms of possession won, but there wasn't a discernible difference. He was a beast, unfortunately a very expensive beast. Because of that wage, he won't be getting a new contract and will be looking for a new player in that holding midfield role. On to the more advanced of the two midfield players, the box-to-box role. This is where we ask a lot of whoever plays there. Bruno, Kobe Mainoo and Mason Mount. They were the main protagonists. They are asked to create, tackle and contribute goals. First up, club captain Bruno. He started 35 times in the league and contributed 9 goals and 6 assists. The 9 goals he scored were under his expected goals, just. But he did have 43% of his shots on target at a rate of 1.32 on target per 90 minutes. He completed 92% of his passes and was expected to have 0.14 assists every 90. He has clearly been very good for us this season, although his XG underperformance was also seen in other competitions too. Only a big money bid would see us part ways with Bruno. Kobe Mainoo made 17 starts and 12 sub-appearances. He earned a new contract and will likely play more minutes next season. He also underperformed his XG, but didn't have that higher number anyway. He hit the target with 22% of his shots and didn't take on many shots at all. In terms of passing, he was steady on the ball, completing 96% of his passes. However, these weren't that advanced, as he only had an XA of 0.54. He'll need to step up next season during his minutes, or could be at risk of being sold. Mason Mount was put in this group due to it being his more natural position in a 4-2-2, but in reality, he was used in both DM roles and on both wings. 10 starts and 19 sub-appearances sort of sums up what he offers to the team. Versatility and a willingness to play as a rotation option in many different roles. It's pretty pointless looking into his stats due to the variety of roles that he played. I think if we can cash in on him with an acceptable bid, then we will, and I'll look to reinvest that into someone with a little bit more of a specific skill set. Now we step into the attacking quarter. Starting with right wing, Brian Mbeumo and Ahmad were two very good options all season. It's a shame they both went off to AFCON at the same time. Mbeumo, the third highest rating of the season across all competitions, and you can see why. He had an XGO performance of 7. He hit the target with 44% of his shots, hitting the target 1.28 times per 90. He created 12 chances for his teammates and had an XA per 90 of 0.17. His goal scoring output from the right wing was very impressive. 14 goals, 3 assists in 27 league starts. Losing him to AFCON was actually a really big blow. He completed 26% of his crosses. He couldn't win a header for toffee, but I don't really care. A certain starter next season. And it made me feel sorry for Ahmad. He only started 8 games and only came off the bench 13 times. I know for a fact 2 of those starts were at right back as well. It's a bit of what if for Ahmad. If he didn't go to AFCON, there is a chance he nails down that right wing spot in Mbeumo's absence and makes it his own. He outperformed his XG by 2, hit the target with 68% of his shots and 1.54 shots were on target every 90 minutes. He completed 33% of his crosses and had an XA of 0.23 per 90. I'd love to find a way to fit him into the team. It's something to consider for next season. On the left-hand side, we only had one option, Matheus Cunha, and that's it. Being the sole option on the left-hand side, it's no surprise Cunha started 36 of 38 games, coming off the bench in 1 game and only missing 1 league game all season. He outscored his XG by 6, hit the target with 48% of his shots and hit the target 1.13 times every 90 minutes. He created 10 chances for teammates and completed 19% of his crosses. He had an XA of 0.14 per 90 minutes. A clear starter, and I'm not looking to replace him. He could, in fact, potentially do a job up front given his XGO performance and his decent chance creation numbers. That would allow us to then get Ahmad in the team on the wing. Up front, we had 2 options for 2 roles. Joshua Zirkzee took the false 9. 23 starts, 4 sub-appearances, and a disappointing underperformance on XG. However, he did get 7 assists in the league. Here though, we're looking for creativity. Xerxes had an XA of 0.2 every 90 minutes, which is very good. He completed 53% of his crosses and had 40 key passes throughout the season. He actually played very well as the link between the DMs and the striker, but I think we can do better. I think next season we have 3 options. We can sell Xerxes, go all out for a replacement. We could get someone in that can do the job as a rotation option with him, or we could give Mateus Cunha a go at the false 9 role to try and create and score. As mentioned before, this would allow Ahmad to then play on one of the wings, and then we look for a rotation option to play back up to Ahmed and Mbuemo. As the centre forward, we had Benjamin Sesko, the player that had the highest average rating through all competitions. He outperformed his XG by 3, had 1.23 shots on target every 90 minutes, and hit the target with 47% of his shots. He won a very respectable 54% of his headers and had an XA not that far off Xerxes' 0.2, recording 0.16 XA per 90 minutes. There's absolutely no need to replace him. He should get better with more playing time. I think we might need an able backup though. By the data, we know that moving into next season, we've got to concede less goals. We've got to progress the ball more through dribbles, and we can afford to be a little bit more aggressive in the tackle. We're going to try and trap the play out wide and restrict access to the central areas. We're going to ask our fullbacks and false 9 to dribble more with the ball. We're going to tell the team to be more aggressive in the tackle. In terms of transfers, well, you have to wait for episode 2. But if you enjoyed this episode, please do leave a like and leave an engagement comment. It really helps get these videos out to more people. For what it's worth, I love doing this data-rich analysis style of video. You can expect to see a lot more of it, as a series that I want to bring to the channel is the Dugout Data series, and this Man United series will be the first one of that series. But don't worry, the Youth Academy Challenge is starting soon as well, because I know a lot of you are very keen for that. But thanks again for all the likes, interaction and support that you all give the channel. If you did want to support it a little bit extra, you can become a YouTube member. Pretty much like the legends that are on your screen now.